We are coming to you live on WFNC 640 AM. We are talking real estate with Team Harris, and I am your host, Wendy Harris, coming to you live from the Team Harris Real Estate offices right here on Hope Mills Road in Fayetteville, North Carolina, home to Fort Bragg, soon to be Fort Liberty. And we are very happy to be here with you. We are discussing scams in real estate, specifically here in North Carolina. But, you know, if they're happening here in North Carolina, they're happening everywhere. And some of the red flags that you need to watch out for, and there's a few of them, but one is a buyer or a seller who they're traveling on vacation, or they're out of the country, or they're just not available. They can't meet in person, and they have to do everything via email. Okay. Could be true, but you need to do your due diligence. You need to be very, very careful. That is a common theme in real estate scams, so be aware. Another one is a seller having a family emergency. They need a quick cash sale on a property, and they are willing to accept less than full price if they can have a quick closing in a short time. Okay. Your spidey senses should be going off at that. You need to really understand the situation and be very careful. I have, in my years of real estate, helped some people in some very difficult situations get real estate sold. Okay. But I had to be much more careful and diligent when my spidey senses were going off, saying just double check, verify. It's not that you don't believe. There are some really tragic stories and things that happen to people, and they do need to sell their real estate quickly. However, you've got to double check some stuff. You really need to make sure that you're not being taken for a scam. Another one, of course, this should be an automatic red flag. Email addresses, phone numbers are from another country. Of course, there are legitimate buyers and sellers from outside of this country or who are living abroad, but it's a red flag that requires some additional due diligence. So just be very, very careful. If you're dealing with people and you do request photo IDs or passports, driver's licenses, anything like that, and when they come to you, they're just very fuzzy pictures, they're hard to decipher, you're having trouble really viewing clear photos and reading the information, red flag. Do not work off of that. Be very, very, very careful. Also, be very aware if a seller doesn't require due diligence money or any earnest money, but they want a quick closing. So, you know, a seller's willing to say, you know what, you don't need due diligence money, don't need earnest money, but let's close next week. Let's make it a cash transaction next week. Be very careful. Those are red flags. Those are red flags. Another one would be buyers who have a quick cash closing, and for some reason, you know, it sounds legitimate, but they just can't get the due diligence money because before closing, we're closing in a week. We're just having trouble getting the due diligence money to you prior to closing. So if we can just pay that at closing, you know, an example is maybe we'll increase the sales price of the house for the accommodation or something like that. Be very careful with that type of stuff. These are actual examples from true cases where people have been scammed. These aren't good people sitting around in a room saying, how could criminals beat the system? These are criminals who have attempted to beat the system or have beat the system, and now we're using these things as examples, okay? Because that's what we're always doing, is chasing criminals, right? Here we go. Let's see, buyers and sellers, either way, could be on either side, just making excuses and not being able to fulfill the terms of the contract, not getting paperwork returned in a timely manner. These are all super red flags. And then another one would be if a buyer or a seller, again, this would be on either side, they get angry or at the broker as you get closer to closing, and they're just applying a whole bunch of pressure to make sure the deal goes through. Sometimes maybe even offering incentives or additional commission bonuses, or promising other opportunities to work on other properties, those types of things. Be very, very careful. Don't let anyone put undue pressure on you in regard to stuff like that. Those are red flags. Those are red flags, red flags. It is no longer enough just to check verify the information people are telling you about their names and their ownership and this type of stuff. People are, these scammers are getting really, really smart. They are getting super intelligent. It's going to be a good idea to actually ask for photo IDs for your clients, the people that you're representing. Also verifying, if you're out there in the market, if you're a buyer or a seller, or you're a realtor listening to me right now, if an agent says to you, they've got a house listed, you bring the buyer to the transaction, and all of a sudden you're starting to hear the agent say, have you verified the photo ID of your client? What? We don't have to do that. Don't get defensive. Don't get defensive, because that listing agent in the scenario I just described could be saving your hiney as well, right? By just helping you understand that there are new best practices as we work to combat real estate fraud in the industry. Okay, so just be very aware and listen. If people start asking for a copy of your photo ID or wanting to make a copy of your ID in a real estate transaction, or are just wanting to verify that a realtor has a copy of their client's identification and has actually confirmed that their client is who they are, this is where the real estate industry is going. Don't get frustrated. Don't get all crazy about it. Know that this is where we're having to go with that. There are lots of other ways and warnings of how to actually combat this. But we are near the end of our show. I just want everyone to know that I'm really happy to be here. If you've got any questions or want to talk about real estate, call us over at Team Harris, 910-433-2724, or go to teamharris.com. Or guess what? We have a brick and mortar building. You can actually come by our offices at 1400 Hope Mills Road. Until next week, I hope everyone has a fantastic week. Stay well, stay kind, and be good.